How's it going, creeps? Welcome to episode 14 of Cinema Creep, a Black Mass Films podcast where we dissect all things vile, disgusting, and downright terrifying in the world of horror cinema. I'm Justin James.
And I'm Andrew Henderson.
And of course, this is another one of our October double features. We've got a couple more of these lined up, and they are only going to get better. So be sure to check them out, and we're super stoked on it. But a couple things before we dive into tonight's films. First of all, everblackcoffee.com. They've hooked us up with an awesome discount for our listeners. So if you go to everblackcoffee.com and use the code DEADANDGONE20, that's dead and for sand gone 20, you can save 40%. Andrew, 40%.
40% is a huge discount.
Yeah.
Huge discount.
Yeah, huge. Most discount codes give you what, like 10, 15%? This is 40%.
Not with Everblack.
Yep, not Everblack. 40%. So again, that's dead and gone 20, dead and for sand gone 20. Second of all, Andrew, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly. When you saw this sitting on my desk, was there any part of you that thought I might kill you with it?
Honestly,
you thought about that way too long, man.
Honestly, no. Not with our social distancing guidelines we have in place.
Well, it's going to end sometime, buddy.
I'll be waiting.
Yeah. Okay. So if you haven't figured it out by that, or, simply the title of the video or the audio only version of this podcast, tonight's double feature is 2014's Creep and 2017's Creep 2. So you want to give us a little bit of insight on Creep 1, because we don't really have any news tonight. I just kind of want to dive into these. Because, these are in a genre that we don't talk about very much on this podcast. We briefly mentioned it, and that's found footage, which is usually hit or miss. But I feel like these two really kind of hit the mark. So,
yeah, I want to start with Creep 1, but before that, two things. I want to point out Justin's Steve Jobs sweater. So if you're watching this in the video version, which you guys should check it out every once in a while, I want you guys to be able to see his Steve Jobs getup he's got, and as well as his nice Halloween setup. I imagine from now, our sets from now until Halloween will have this Halloween theme. So it's looking pretty gnarly, I think.
Yours is pretty rad. You got all the spiderweb deal going on, which I wanted to do, but see, I look ahead, right? And I thought to myself, I want to put this shit all over my studio, but do I want to unput this shit all in my studio?
Yeah,
and the answer was no.
I get that, but the thing about it is this, I actually didn't put this here. This is just I woke up and it was like this, all the spider web. So it's the happy accidents in life, Justin.
That's what happens when you don't clean your damn studio space.
That's I'm like the Disney princess of insects.
Yeah, or the girl from Phenomena.
Oh yeah, I'm oh god damn, what's her name?
I don't remember the character's name, but
yeah, the actress. It's
Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly. Yep. Okay. So Creep 1 and Creep 2. So Creep from 2014, guys, written by Patrick Bryce, directed by Patrick Bryce, starring Patrick Bryce and Mark Duplass, and also written by Mark Duplass. It's about a young videographer answers an online ad for a one-day job in a remote town to record the last messages of a dying man. When he notices the man's odd behavior, he starts to question his intentions. So, what were your initial impressions of this film, Justin, when you saw it for the first time?
For one, it made me uncomfortable as fuck, which was obviously the goal. And as we get into that in a minute, just to point out again, my Steve Jobs sweater, as Andrew puts it, it's relevant to the film. This is what Joseph is his name in the first film. Mark Duplass's character. He wears, he just kind of looks like a normal dude, but we'll get into that. So secondly, besides just feeling uncomfortable, this kind of hit home for me, and I imagine it hits home for you too, us being, in the field of filmmaking and videography. I've been in similar situations, and I'm pretty sure you have too. So I don't know. It resonated with me and made me kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I mean, the same thing that Justin was saying is it made me uncomfortable, but for reasons that sort of are very real to me. So, as somebody that's done a lot of video work in my life, and most of us, if you're a filmmaker, you know, a lot of times you'll go out and you'll meet clients that you have never met before. You'll go to remote locations that you've never been to, right? And sometimes you get into some sketchy places, or you're driving through sketchy places to get where you're going, and you're like, this is either the beginning of a horror movie, or I'm going to be a sex slave to some wild cult in the Tennessee mountains. You know, who knows, right? Like, you never can tell. People are outrageous and deranged, and anything can happen. And many of days I have started off talking to my camera just like this guy does in this movie, because the movie opens with Patrick Bryce's character talking to his camera saying, you know, like, I'm going out here, you know, this is far out of the way kind of deal, and talking to his camera saying he's never met the guy, doesn't know where he's going. Many times on jobs, Justin, I've driven out like that, and that's one of the reasons this movie made me feel so unnerved, was I can relate to it in real life.
Yep. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I think anyone who works in that field, especially as freelancers, like, we kind of feel, I mean, if you answer, especially like answering ads online, which I don't know if this is really too much of a thing anymore. Like, this was a 2014 film. Craigslist has kind of like died out. And some of you listening or watching might not even know what the hell Craigslist is. Craigslist is a wild place. It's an extremely wild place. Basically, you can post like just classified ads for anything, literally anything. So, you know, we've all been there looking for work as a freelance photographer, videographer. You're like, oh, we'll go check the classified ads. And it's like some dude wanting you to, you know, film like, what is it in this film? He's wanting, so he's a cancer patient, and he's wanting this videographer, Aaron is his name. He's wanting him to film like a memoir kind of documentary thing, because he's dying, and his son, his to-be born son, he wants to leave this video or film, documentary, whatever you want to call it, behind for him to know him as. So it's like, imagine, you know, you're scrolling down classified ads and you see something like that, and you're like, sure, why not? It's like a quick $1,000, and you drive out to the middle of nowhere, and you're just like,
that's the scary thing.
This could be my last gig.
I would have done $1,000 for a day to just go film, you know, whatever. I'd be like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. $1,000 in a day, you can't beat that as a freelancing videographer. I mean, I guess you can, but easy money. Easy money.
Easy money. It's also an easy way to die. So,
yeah, true that. So, let's talk about, first of all, why we are even doing these films, Justin. You had a recommendation on these, right?
Okay, so yeah, we've been doing these double features, obviously. Some of them made sense to you guys. Some of them might not. They're just films that we just happen to enjoy, and we're like, hey, let's slap them together. But this episode, so one of our regular listeners, I put out some feelers on my social media, Instagram and stuff like that, and said, hey, you know, we're looking for a film or two to throw in our double feature episodes. And so Jasmine, her Instagram tag is Dirty Little Horror. She, you know, responded to the hit I put out, and she said, you know, have you done Creep 2, or like, have you watched Creep 2? And I actually haven't. I had seen Creep 1. This is probably when I watched it to refresh my mind for this episode. That's probably like the third time I've seen it since it came out. But Creep 2 I had not watched until we were preparing for this episode. So shout out to Jasmine. Go follow her on Instagram, Dirty Little Horror. So we were actually going to do Creep 2, like she suggested, and another film, but then we decided let's just do both Creeps. So
yeah, you can't do one without the other. So
yep.
Yeah, so
Creep, so here we are.
2014, guys. It opens up, Justin, with this guy driving to he entered this ad on Craigslist, like you mentioned, and he drives to this guy's house. And when he gets there, you know, your whole little skit about the axe, right? You know, he sees an axe in the front lawn. It's like something that is very apparent, because you see him look at it. And he goes up to the guy's house. He knocks on the door. The guy doesn't answer. So he goes back down to his car, and he's waiting in his car. And by this time, Mark Duplass's character, he was out jogging supposedly, right? And he jumps up. It's like the first jump scare of the film. He basically jumps at the window and scares the shit out of the dude. And, he's like, hey, didn't mean to scare you and all this. And the first thing you notice about Joseph, which is Mark Duplass's character, is that he's just this overly... I don't even know. He's like...
he's very intrusive.
He's intrusive. He's like very happy, very upbeat, and sometimes those are the creepiest people you'll meet in life. You know what I mean? The people that are, you're like, are they either on something or what's going on? Why are they so joyful? You know what I mean? And you notice
like,
that.
Why are you so happy? You've obviously never had to refinance your house so you could become an executive producer of In Search of Darkness Part 2. Like,
yeah, right. You've obviously never had to take spiderweb down out of your studio.
Yeah, But I have no problems at all.
But so Mark Duplass's character immediately is creepy. So he greets Aaron and takes him up into his house, and Aaron's kind of wondering what the gig is, and he says, hey man, like we're gonna be friends, we're gonna go on this journey together, which is already just creepy. And he's basically telling him, because you could tell Aaron is already sort of creeped out, right? But then Mark Duplass gives him this sob story about how he has, he's terminally ill. He has cancer, and he only has 2 months left to live. And he wants Aaron there to make this video for his future son to remember him by, so his son can watch it in the future and see that, oh, his dad was a good guy, and this is what moments like his dad would have been like.
Yeah. But the weird, like, it gets weird though. Like a lot of the things that, he's doing, like the first thing right off the bat, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go get in the tub. And he right. he films him, he calls it tubby time. And he's like giving himself a bath, and Aaron's like filming it, but he's pretending like he's got his son, and he's like giving him a bath, and he just lays back, and he's like, like petting his imaginary son's head. And then it gets really weird, because then this is where you find out, okay, this dude's like kind of fucked up in the head, because that right is where he's like, actually, I'm just like, I'm fucking depressed. Like, I'm thinking about ending it. And he like lowers himself into the bathtub and acts like he's drowning himself. And then Aaron's like, dude, Joseph, what? Like, and he like yells at him to like get out of the tub or whatever. And then he pops up and he sees that Aaron's like concerned. And he's like, oh, dude, that was a joke. I'm sorry. Like that was such a bad joke. I didn't, sorry, man. And you're just like, what the who the fuck?
Yeah. Well, there's a little more to unpack there. I mean, like everything you said, I agree with, but the tubby time, right? So first of all, he's getting undressed, and he doesn't make Aaron leave. He just met this dude, and the dude's getting butt ass naked in front of him, and he doesn't make him leave, because he's like, should I leave? He's like, no, and then he gets in the tub, right? And like you said, he's doing all the weird stuff, like pretending his son's there. So he's going through the motions and pretending to pick his son up and put him in. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of sweet. And then he starts going into this really weird, like pretending to smell his son's feet and saying they're stinky and all this stuff, and like really role playing, like his son's there. Like I would have left in that moment. I would have been like, yeah,
it would have made me too uncomfortable.
But then, yeah, and then the suicide thing, right? Like you said, he pretends to drown himself to basically do a jump scare on Aaron, right? And say, oh, I'm just kidding, and of course, he is set back, and he's kind of like freaking out, but he's still sort of like, okay, well, I'm here because this guy is trying to make this video for his son, and he's trying to be a good guy. Yeah, so from there, it gets even stranger, if, you can imagine it being any weirder than that.
Oh, yeah.
Justin.
Okay, so, we're not going to like dive like into every detail of the story, because we do want you guys to go watch these films. But I mean, there's just weirder things, like, so they eventually go on a hike, right? And they're searching for this place out in the middle of the woods that Joseph tells Aaron, there's this like little spot of water, and if you're pure of heart, like you get in it and you just have like this otherworldly experience. So they both get in the water, they finally find it, but the whole like hike there, they've been hiking for a long ass time, and Aaron's like, I think we should go back. Like, do you even know where we are? And he's like, no, I've not been paying attention. But he's so nonchalant about it. Like, he doesn't care. Like, the dude is just like, yeah, I mean, we got to find it, dude. We got to find it. And then that's when he asks him, a similar question. He's like, when you saw the axe sitting on my porch, was there any part of you that thought I might kill you with it? But when he says it, he's got like this weird grin on his face. And Aaron's response is, I mean, like, yeah, maybe a little. And he's like, did you really? And he says it just like that. And it's so just creepy. But then they find this water and they have like this little moment. And, Aaron's like, okay, well, maybe this dude's just kind of unique or whatever. But then there's other weird moments too, like Peach Fuzz. Like, you want to talk about Peach Fuzz?
Right, guys. So right before they go hiking, Aaron finds the Peach Fuzz mask in Mark Duplass's closet, and it scares the shit out of him because he pulls back a curtain that's blocking Mark Duplass's closet, and he sees the Peach Fuzz mask up on the shelf, and he jumps back, and it scares him. And the next thing you know, Mark Duplass comes in the room, and he's like, oh, that's just Peach Fuzz. And then he goes in and saying that, telling the story about Peach Fuzz and doing this song.
It's like, hello, my name is Peach Fuzz. I may look like I'll eat you up, but I got a heart of a rabbit, and like weird stuff. It's like a really weird song that his dad used to like sing to him or something, is the story.
Yeah, so it's like this little 10-second song that he's singing, and he's like playing air guitar and stuff, and it's super weird. And then they go on this hike. Like you said, they go on this hike because Mark Duplass wants to take Aaron and show him this, like you said, this body of water that is supposed to be like have healing energy, right? Because he's going there because of his cancer. And they're getting lost. First of all, Mark Duplass starts running off through the woods, and Aaron's like looking around like, oh shit. So he starts going after him, and then it's another jump scare. Like Mark jumps out to scare him, and then Aaron is like automatically mad. He's like, you know what, this is just getting too fucking weird. I don't like this. And Joseph ends up saying, hey, that's Mark Duplass's character. Joseph ends up saying, tries to calm him down and saying, hey, it's basically, the adrenaline's making you feel alive kind of deal, and they start walking through the woods, and Aaron's like, man, we're getting really lost. Do you remember, where we came from? And Mark was like, no, it doesn't matter though. We just have to keep going forward. They find the healing body of water, and they see the heart-shaped little rock.
It's like in the rock. Yeah.
Yeah, and Aaron's like, he must not have been lying, like it's something really here, because I think Aaron was starting to think, this guy's bringing me out here to kill me. He's starting to think this is getting really weird. But once he sees there's an actual place that Joseph was taking him, he was like, okay, maybe it's not as weird. Maybe it's just me thinking this guy is really fucked up. And so they have that moment in the water, right? And he talks about being hungry and wanting to get food and all this. And he's like, okay, well, let's just hang out here, and then we'll get food after this. And he's talking to him about pancakes, right? So they end up going to a pancake house right after that. So Justin, you could take it from there if you want.
Yeah. So this is where it starts to get really weird, right? Like, we're going to try to like kind of fly through the rest of this film. But so they're at this pancake place. And all of his behavior is just really weird. Like, while they were at the place, he was telling them, their pancakes are the best. But then when they get there, like, even just little simple details, like he's looking at the menu, like he's like, well, let's see what they've got. And Aaron's like, I thought you said that the pancakes were good. And he's like, oh, what? And he's like, well, I thought you said you eat here all the time. He's like, yeah, but they changed the menu. But just like all of his little mannerisms and those little simple exchanges are just weird. Right. And then so they're having like a moment. He's like, well, tell me something about yourself. And then Aaron gives him a little, like a secret. So then he's like, well, now it's your turn. It's only fair. So Joseph pulls out his cell phone and shows him that, like, when he arrived, he was taking all these pictures of him. He's showing him when he pulled up and he was looking for the guy. He had taken pictures, candid photos. So like the whole time you think he's out jogging and he's gone, he's really hiding behind trees and stuff, taking photos of him. And it's just really weird. And he's like, so, I hope we can move past this or whatever. And then they go back to his cabin, or this like cabin kind of loft kind of deal. And then this is when it starts to like really kind of get weirder and like kind of push itself towards the end of the movie. He gives them this whole spiel about how he's rich and he's like, I can give you money. And then they get drunk, right? And then he tells them that really fucked up story.
Wait a minute. Let me unpack this because I know this part pretty good. So he takes him back, right? And by the time they get back to Joseph's house, Mark Duplass's character's house, by the time they get back there, it's already dark. And Aaron's like, okay, well, I've had a full day of this. I'm ready to go, And Aaron's like, oh, really? Can't you just come up for a drink? And he's like, no, but...
Which I want to point out real quick. This film isn't full of great cinematography because it's found footage, right? It's all like handheld video camera work. But that shot... If you guys go look up the like front cover art for Creep, it's a screen grab from that shot where he's standing at the top of those stairs and he's just silhouetted. Like that one shot is like, it's so good and it's so creepy. And for it being found footage and you're like, oh man, that shot is like fucking like, I don't know. It was just, that's a good fucking shot.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a backlit shot that's silhouetted with Mark Duplass standing there, silhouetted at the top of the stairs of his little cabin. So he convinces Aaron to come upstairs, and when he does, they're getting drunk. They're having a drink, and Joseph tells Aaron to basically turn the camera off. He wants to tell him that he lied to him about the peach fuzz story, right? So this is where he talks about where the mask actually came from and wants to come clean because now they're quote unquote buddies, right? They've been through a lot together. It's basically what Joseph is saying. And he wants to be clean with Aaron. And he goes to tell Aaron this weird story about how his wife... he found out she was looking at a whole lot of animal pornography, a lot of bestiality porn. And, so it basically made him want to go out. He went to the 99-cent store and he found the peach fuzz mask. That's why he bought the peach fuzz mask and broke into his own house one night when he was supposed to be at work and, wore the mask and had some sort of like weird, rape fantasy with his wife wearing a peach fuzz mask. And he said it was like one of the most lustful, best nights of sex that they've ever had. And that's why he has the mask. And the whole time in the film, the whole screen is dark, but it's all subtitled because, Aaron left the camera running. He just like put the lens cap on or something like that to make, Joseph think that he wasn't recording. So it captured this entire story. And at this time, Aaron's like, oh, man, this is really weird. So they continue to drink. And Aaron's thinking like he needs to get out of there. He's trying to find his way out, especially after the story. But little does he know that Joseph took his car keys. So he's freaking out, wondering where his keys are, and he can sense that that Joseph is getting really more and more weird as he's looking for his keys. Like Joseph is telling him, hey, I don't want you to leave. It's getting too dark for you to drive down the mountain. I've got another bed here. You could just stay. And I mean, of course, after a story like that, you don't want to be anywhere near a person like that, right? So you're like, I've got to get out of here. So he's looking for his keys. And he decides, well, he settles down because he knows he's not going to find them. He knows that Joseph has them. He's like, this guy is a fucking weirdo. I've got another plan. And what he does is he ends up putting, what does he put in his drink? He puts something in Joseph's drink.
It's like, I don't remember what it is. I'll look it up while you keep going if I can find it. But it's like some kind of sleeping medication or something.
But I don't know why Aaron's carrying around this medication with him or whatever he puts in his drink. I never really paid that close attention to it.
Well, I don't know if he's got it or if it's something that he found in like Joseph's cabinet or something.
So
it's never really explained.
Yeah, he puts this shit in Joseph's drink because he's making the drinks for him. And you can tell that Joseph, it's a moment of suspense. So Joseph is drinking it and you can tell he senses something. He never comes out right and says, oh, this tastes weird. But you could just see in his mannerisms, he's like sucking his teeth and stuff as he's drinking the drink with the stuff in it. And you're like, oh shit, he's going to get found out. Do you remember this, Justin?
Yep.
It's a good moment of suspense. That's why it's written really well. for this film being as simple as it is, like it's written really well. And just being a cast of two, you know, and one of them is the director, and I believe he's actually, or maybe there's a third guy that's the cinematographer, but it's like literally three people, you know, making this film. And it's just so unnerving. You know, they have these huge moments of suspense. So he gets Joseph drunk, and Joseph falls asleep on the fireplace, right? And this is the classic scene of, you know, the captor trying to get their keys out of the kidnapper, or the capturees, whatever you would call them, the kidnappee. The kidnappee trying to get the keys away from the kidnapper, you know, so he's trying to get it out of his pocket. Yeah. And he's being real careful, trying to sneak over and trying to unzip his pocket or whatever to get his keys out. And of course, he's doing the whole thing where he's snoring and like flailing his arms and stuff, you know, as he's trying to get the keys. But what happens, Justin? Do you remember past that? What happens?
Yeah. So for one, this whole scene is one of those where you're just like on the edge of your seat. You're like, a pin drop could wake this dude up, and he's like, now Aaron's fucked. So what happens? His fucking phone rings, and so it's Joseph's phone rings, and he grabs it, and he's like, "What?" So he grabs it and runs into the bathroom, and he answers it. And is her name Angela? Is that what it was?
Something like that. I think so.
It's something like that, but it's the name that Joseph told Aaron was the name of his wife. Yeah. So he thinks it's his wife, and he's like, you know, I'm here at your husband, like this cabin, and you know, like I was shooting this video for him, and like, you know, he's drunk, and he's just like, he's got my keys, and then she tells him, you need to get out. My brother has some problems. So now you find out like all that whole like rape story, the whole wife story, like, yeah, you're just like,
the thing about it is like, you're like, okay, it's his fucking sister, but is the rape story still true? Or is it just totally everything made up?
They don't like, with the whole it could go either way.
His sister, right? Yeah. So that's the genius of the writing here, because it immediately makes you think all that in your head. You're like, oh my God, is he just like this ancestral bestiality weirdo, or is he just making everything up? You know, you don't know, and that's the creepy part about it.
Yeah. So, you know, from there, he's like, okay, well, this is fucked. I've got to get out of here. So he gets off the phone with her, and he goes back out to the room, and classic, Joseph's not there. He's gone. So at this point, you're just like, holy shit. How's it going, creeps? One quick mid-episode break to tell you a little more about our sponsor. Since 2016, Everblack Coffee Company has delivered exceptional single-origin coffee and high fives all over the world. They understand that a cup of coffee is so much more than something you drink. That's why they source their beans from farms that only use fair trade and organic growing practices. When you buy coffee from Everblack, you can be certain that you're getting the highest quality coffee available by ethical means only. It's time to start looking at coffee differently. Head over to everblackcoffee.com and grab a bag for yourself. It's deliciously dark. Now back to the show. And so then, you know, he's going through the house looking for it. He's like, where'd Joseph go? And then you kind of see like the sliding doors that go out to the balcony. It's kind of like cracked. So he goes out like, you know, like cracked open. It's like a jar. It's not like busted or anything. But so he goes out and he's like, where is this dude? And he's looking and you don't see him. And then he like creeps out of the shadows, or he turns around and he's there. Right. So it's another jump scare, but he's like, now he's got like this just look on his face, like, what the fuck? And then he tells him, he says, you know, I spoke to Angela. I'm pretty sure Angela's her name. If not, comment below and tell me I'm dumb, but I'm probably not. So he's like, I spoke to her on the phone. I know everything. Like, I know you're lying. So then he just like weirds out, right? And he runs back into the cabin, or it's like a weird, we keep saying cabin, but it's like an apartment cabin kind of thing. It's like a really weird.
It's a cabin.
It's a neat place.
Definitely a cabin. Just call it a cabin.
Well, I'm just saying. It's a weird place, but it's a neat place. But it's also a creepy place because now he's ran back in there. So Aaron's like, okay, what the hell's going on?
And he hears something. He goes, right? Like he hears the noise.
Yeah. So he goes in and he's about to go through the hallway to get out. And Joseph is standing there with Peach Fuzz's mask on against the door, blocking it. And he starts like gyrating his hips and he's like, like doing stuff like that. And he's like, you've got to let me leave. And then he just gets more aggressive with this like,
he's like, if you're trying to scare me, it worked.
Yeah, he's like, if you're trying to scare me, you know, you've done a good job. Like, just let me leave. And then he just runs at him. And like, I guess he tackles him and then, you know, Aaron drops the camera and then it just kind of cuts off. And you're like, okay, what the fuck happened? So now there's like a time skip. Like, you want to get into that? Like, because now it cuts to Aaron at his home.
Well, hold on. It does and it doesn't, because it cuts straight away to a shot of Joseph basically digging a grave. Because you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because you think it's...
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that.
It cuts to the shot of Joseph digging the grave and you're like... And he's
dragging a couple garbage bags.
Yeah, he is. He's dragging garbage bags up a hill, and you're like, oh god, he fucking killed Aaron. Like, I knew this was gonna happen. Aaron, why are you so dumb? Why didn't you leave when you were at the pancake house? Why didn't you ask for help? You know what I mean? Like, this is all feelings that I'm going through as I'm watching it, and then the camera pulls away, and Aaron's at his home, and you're like, oh good fucking god, you know, like, Aaron's still alive. Yeah,
which. I think that's like it's an ingenious shot because you see it and it looks like you're watching it and then it pulls away and it's really Aaron is filming himself watching it. So
they do that at a couple times in this this franchise.
Yeah. So Joseph has like now he's found out where Aaron lives. He keeps sending him these weird DVDs. Of him like talking to the camera like vlog style, telling Aaron, you know, like, you hurt my feelings, basically. So then it starts to get even weirder. He gets a package in the mail and it's like a stuffed like baby wolf and another DVD and a knife. And he tells him, you know, to cut into the wolf, right? And that's when he gives him is that the necklace?
It is, but you know what I think you should do? I think you should leave that as a cliffhanger. That way we don't spoil the ending, and we should just let people watch it.
Yeah, that's all we're going to say. Like, I'm not going to get more into that, but so basically just, you know, he keeps sending him weird stuff, right? So now...
But the necklace is key, because we're going to talk about it later.
So the necklace is a big thing, and you basically, now you know that Joseph knows where Aaron lives. It gets even weirder than that. And then he keeps sending him DVDs. And then finally, the last DVD he sends him, you know, he's like, look, I'm sorry for everything. You know, I want to talk. I want to work this out. I want to be friends. I want to be completely honest with you. And then Aaron's just like, what do I do? Basically. And that is where we're going to leave you on that, because you kind of already like, well, that's the thing. That's why I think this movie's genius. Cause you're like, okay, this is only going to end one way. But then you're like, but wait a second. Like, I don't know. Like, Joseph is so manipulative and damn good at it.
And Aaron's very good at making bad decisions. And I'm going to tell you, he makes more before the end of the film.
He also has a good heart. He also has a good heart, as Joseph tells him.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't known Aaron very long. And I don't know if I can go ahead and make that assumption that he has a good heart. You know? Well, I mean, maybe he does.
Maybe he does.
I don't know.
Or, you know, so maybe he's got a good heart. His problem is he just doesn't have a good head on his shoulders. So
guys, one of the most brilliant writing techniques, if you're a writer, you know anything about like foreshadowing, is from the playwright Anton Chekhov. And they have this sort of technique in screenwriting or writing in general called Chekhov's gun. And it's basically about, if you show an object at the beginning of a film, then you need to actually make sure that object that you showed is going to be used later on in the film, right? It's called Chekhov's gun. It's just a writing technique. So in this film, for instance, they show the axe in the stump at the beginning, and he says, hey, you know, they bring it attention once when he sees it, they bring it attention too when he says, hey, when you saw that axe, I've got a question. Did you think I was going to kill you with it? And then later on, that also makes an appearance. So they didn't only just throw together a film with like 3 dudes. They really actually thought about what they were doing. And the interesting part about this film, Justin, is that they didn't really have a script from what I read. They kind of just improvised a whole lot of it. I think they did.
Yeah, they had like, I think, a general outline, right?
I think they kind of do what like me and you talk about doing all the time. Let's just put an outline out there and let's just freaking use that as like a very basic structure for what we're trying to film. And it's a success. This is a creepy ass movie, no pun intended. This is literally like a Cinema Creep certified creepy movie. And I'm so glad that I would have never thought, I mean, we would have got to it eventually, but I would have never thought about doing it in our October double feature had it not been for Dirty Little Horror saying, let's do Creep 2. And then, of course, we're like, well, if we're going to do that, we got to do Creep 1. So big shout out to her, Justin. And let's talk about Creep 2. This is the better of the two, in my opinion.
Well, okay, so I want to touch on that just for a second because with her suggestion, Jasmine also did say that this was, worlds better than the first, in her opinion. You also agree.
I do.
Me, I don't think that it's worlds better. Now, granted, I've mentioned this to you a little bit. This is the first time I had seen Creep 2. So I've only seen it once, and it was in preparation for this episode. I decided when I was going to watch this, well, I haven't seen Creep in like a year and a half. So I watched them back to back. I don't know if it's because I watched Creep before I watched Creep 2. I can't say that if I would have watched Creep 2 and then revisited Creep, if I would have felt differently, if I would have been like, oh, Creep 2 was better. But in my opinion, like, I'll watch Creep 2 again. But I think if I was going to sit down and I was going to pick one of the two of these to watch, I would pick Creep. Now, I will give this film credit. You do not have to watch the first one to watch the second one. This is it's like Evil Dead 2, right? You don't have to watch the first one to watch the second one.
And quite honestly, it's the same film. It is the exact same film.
Yeah, it's the same kind of premise. Now, this one does have like other creepy moments, but I do think they did a good job in not making it exactly a copy of the first one, because real quick, this is obviously directed by Patrick Bryce again, written by Mark Duplass and Patrick Bryce, but this time it stars, of course, Mark Duplass. He comes back as Joseph, but his name in this one is Aaron.
Don't let us confuse you.
We never know what we never know what his actual name is. The Creep, the main antagonist in these films, we don't know what his real name is because, he's a master manipulator. He comes up with these stories. In the first one, he talks about he wanted to be an actor. So he's good at like pretending. That's his thing. Mm-hmm. So is that Karen Sony, or would you say like Karan Sony? And Desiree Akavan. So this film doesn't try to give you the whole, well, you don't know what his deal is because if you've seen the first one, he's like fucking psycho. The thing is, in this one is the audience knows, but the main protagonist, he's honest with her,
but you don't know,
but she's in disbelief.
Away. So, and that's a whole different kind of horror, Justin, right? Like when you know that there's a villain, but the audience doesn't, or like, the characters in the movie don't know, right? It's sort of like in Halloween when you see Michael Myers before the characters do, and you're like, holy shit. You know what I mean? You're like, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
And then that really builds again. That goes back to the writing, right? Like it's a very simple premise, but it goes back to the writing of it just being so genius. And like when I said it's the same movie, but when you think about it, this movie is literally about a serial killer. And what do serial killers do? They have an MO, right? They do things, they're very ritualistic. And that's sort of like what plays out in this film, right? Is he's doing all his victims the same exact way. He puts an ad on Craigslist for a videographer again, right? Because the synopsis of this, a video artist looking for work drives to a remote house in the forest to meet a man claiming to be a serial killer. But after agreeing to spend the day with him, she soon realizes that she made a deadly mistake, right? So, Justin, initial impressions on this one. You said that you like Creep 1 better. You know, I like Creep.
It's not even so much that I like it better, because it's not like, I'm not saying like, oh, you know, Creep 2 just kind of fell flat. It's just, again, I do think it's because I watched them in order, and maybe if I would have watched this for the first time before I revisited Creep, I might have felt different. I just feel like if I was going to revisit one of them just on a whim, I'm like, you know what I want to watch today? It's probably going to be the first one. And then I might watch the second one if I watch the first one. But before we dive into it, I want to touch on, you know, you read the synopsis and we're talking about how it's the same movie, but it's got a twist. You know, even reading the synopsis, it almost sounds like the synopsis of the first film, only it's a woman videographer this time. And she's kind of like a YouTuber, right? Which this hits even closer to home because she's got a YouTube show.
Encounters.
Where she Encounters, where she goes and she meets up with all these people on Craigslist that are like these lonely men or whatever. And she makes like a mini documentary about them, or a vlog. But in the synopsis, this, you know, tells you right off the bat, like, this man is claiming to be a serial killer. So he has straight up told her ahead of time, just so you know, like, I've killed a lot of people. It's like 37 people. 39 people.
Yeah.
And he's wanting to make a documentary about his life, basically. And because he doesn't feel inspired anymore. But before you get too far into that, I want you to talk about the opening, because you remember there's another victim in the very opening sequence of this movie, right? That gets a package. Yes.
That gets a package in the mail. He gets a creepy package, and he basically, Mark Duplass shows up at his house, and it's like, you already know that he's the fucking guy, right? You already know that he's the killer from the first movie. So if you just watch Creep 2, it's like a whole nother joyful experience as you're finding out. But if you've seen Creep 1, you're like, oh shit. So he shows up to this dude's house, and this is the Karan Sonai guy's house, right? And this guy's been in everything too. If you look at his IMDb, he's been in everything. He's, you know, been in Deadpool and like Avengers and all kinds of shit. So very skilled actor here, and he seems pretty good in this. He has a very small portion in the intro though, because Mark Duplass shows up at his house and he's like, I got this weird package, and it was the baby wolf, right? And he's got the baby wolf, and he's showing him, basically saying, this person's been stalking me. They got photos and video of me. And Mark Duplass is like, oh man, you know, like, you know, let's have a drink. And then
you got to do something. Yeah. Well, at first he's telling him, like, you've got to like
call the cops.
You got to take this more seriously.
Yeah. And he's like, I have called the cops.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the first one, like, you think this guy's like a caring friend, right? But that's why. So I do think the second one, even though I enjoy the first one more, I think the second one is genius in the sense that whether you've seen the first or not, it has a different creepy factor, right? Because if you've seen the first one, you're like thinking, oh, dude, no, you're about to fuck up so bad. Like, you don't even know who this guy is, and you already know. But if you are watching it at the second one and you haven't seen the first one, you're like, okay, this dude's like a genuine concerned friend. Like, he's a little weird, but you know, especially when because the baby wolf has a camera in it. So he's like looking at it all strange. So you don't know it's a camera yet though. So you're just like, why is he looking at this baby wolf like that? Like, what's the deal here? And then he's like, you know, you got to call the cops. This is a big deal. Like, they know where you live. It's serious. And then they go have a drink, and you're just like, okay, he's a concerned friend. And then he tells them, he's like, you know, I just think we've gone as far as we can go. And then just like you see him pull a knife out of his
Yes. Hold up.
Hold up. Does he pull it out of his boot or his pocket?
Hold up. So he pulls it out of his boot, right? So this is another ingenious thing right here, because like I said, knowing the villain before the characters do, you see him pull the knife up because they're sitting at a table, and he points the baby wolf towards the table that has the camera in it. And his friend sitting at the table with him doesn't know that he's pulling the knife out. He pulls it up out of his boot, like you said, and he's holding it at his waistband, already ready to strike, right? And the audience can see it. We're all like, oh, fuck, you know, because he's just holding it down low. And his friend's just sitting there at the table, kind of like, okay, why have we gone as far as we can go? Like, sort of like, you know, why are you acting like this is a breakup, right? And then you can finish what you're saying. I just wanted to talk about how the audience sees it before.
No, right. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so even if you haven't seen the first film, you're like, okay, well, what the fuck? Like, this dude came in here like being a caring, concerned friend, and then just out of nowhere, he pulls the knife out and the audience sees it and you're just like, okay. And then he slashes the guy's fucking throat. So as a first time viewer, if you've not seen the first one, now you're just like, holy shit. So then it kind of goes into, you know, we meet the main protagonist of what's her name? What's the character's name in this? The girl who has, Sarah, right? It's Sarah. She's got the show Encounters, you know, and it shows her meeting, or she finds the ad on Craigslist, right? And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go do this. But the ad doesn't straight up say, hey, I'm a serial killer. Now, the ad does say something interesting that I want to touch on a little bit, you know, in a couple minutes. But it's like, you know, you must be a fan of Interview with the Vampire.
Which is so weird.
And at first,
which is so weird in general.
Well, it's weird in general, but if you think like, you know, you're just like, what the fuck? Like, that's random. But then it makes sense, you know, as the film goes on, you know, you find out like this is the Interview with the Vampire. Like, he's a serial killer and he straight up tells her. But that's the premise, like through the whole movie, like she's brave. And so the audience is like thinking, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I know this guy, even if you've not seen the first, you know that he just killed this dude at the beginning. And she's like being super brave, right? And the whole time you're just thinking, what the fuck? But it's because she doesn't believe him.
Also, she's also like, she mentions something about her YouTube channel or whatever it is that she's uploading to.
Yeah, her views are suffering.
Yeah,
and stuff.
like she's hardly getting any views. So she's like, this is gonna like really set me in the right direction, you know, because I'm interviewing a real life serial killer. I'm making a documentary about a real life serial killer. You know, like views are gonna skyrocket. And little does she know, because she doesn't believe him at first. But I mean, as the story goes on, Justin, again, like in the first one, things get stranger and stranger. And
So, well, the problem is I don't want to give too much away. Like, I feel like with the first one, you know, we gave a lot away. There's still a lot to, you know, unpack and unravel if you go watch it yourself. But so we're going to try not to do that as much with this one. But so basically he's telling her, you know, look, I'm uninspired. Like, he's looking at his kills as like art, right? They're his movies, and he's a creator. He's an artist. And he's like, I've killed 39 people. And she's just like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And you're just like, wow, is she really like putting herself at that much risk for her show? But then she goes off into the bathroom and she's talking to her camera, talking to her viewers, because he thinks that she's just there for this documentary. But she is there. She's like, this is an opportunity for my channel, for my brand to grow. And she's talking to the camera, and she's like, you know, I don't believe this guy at all. And she's like, but I'm prepared. You know, she's got a knife in her boot, which is more foreshadowing. And then basically they just go through this series of, he's like, all right, let's make this film. So, you know, he does a lot of weird stuff. Like, he's like, okay, well, we got to be comfortable with each other,
God,
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he gets butt ass naked. And I'm talking like this film, like full frontal.
Yeah.
Full fucking frontal. And he's just standing there. He's like stiff, right? He's like this, arms by his side. And he's like, we good?
Yeah.
And then she's just like, all right, is it my turn? And he's just like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
so that's the thing.
But it's one of those, like, did she really throw him for a loop, or is he just pretending like she threw him for a loop? Like, you never know with this dude.
Well, I think that he doesn't really know what it's like to have somebody not instantly be weirded out and be scared, right? So she challenges him. She definitely challenges him. So the interesting part about this, Justin, is like you said, he takes his clothes off and he's just standing there naked with his hands on his hips, right? And you know, you get the full frontal, everything Mark Duplass has to offer right there. And she says, yeah, is it my turn? And he's like, what? But when she goes to take her clothes off, you expect it to just be like a full frontal of her, but he zooms in on her face, right? Because it goes more into the psychology of like, what's this guy thinking? Is he thinking about intimacy moreover than, you know, anything else, you know, or is he thinking, you know, what's he thinking? You know, like, because I'm sure they wouldn't have any issue like showing her full frontal in the film. I think it's more of on a psychological level. Like this guy is just, more interested in, like her mind, right? Like
the reaction he's getting out of her, right?
And it's more or less, it makes it even stranger, more interesting. They didn't cop out and just be like, okay, well, let's show her nude as well. They were like, well, let's, show his thought process a little bit. So I always thought that was kind of weird. And then, like you said, she has the knife in her boot. That's a key thing for this movie because that comes into play later. But in true fashion of the first film, he takes her out in the woods, right? And he's like, I want this cool shot of me, in the water. And, well, hold on. Let me backtrack. I'm trying to pack it all in here. So, damn it, Justin.
That whole scene is just weird. No, we're good. Because I want to kind of like, I don't want to give every weird thing they do anyway, right? But like, so he's dead set on making this documentary. And he's promised her he's not going to kill her. They're going to make this film. Like he's not going to kill her for the next 24 hours. He's paying her $1,000 to spend 24 hours with him. So they go out and they find this like spot. It's supposed to be like this big river. And they get there and he's pissed because the water level is like so low that it's like a creek. And he's like, I had this perfect fucking shot like planned out. And he's like losing it. Right. And you're like, okay, there he is. There's the weirdo. Mm-hmm. So then they're trying to get the shot anyway. And he's like, he's like, okay, look, we're going to CGI some water. So he's like sitting, like he's like meditating, but he's like doing this with his arms. If you're watching on the video version, that way, she can put the water in afterwards. And then he starts getting pissed off because there's birds chirping. Then there's an airplane that goes over. So it's just, you see him becoming like more unhinged and starting to realize this isn't going to go the way he wants anyway. So it's basically just a series of a bunch of shit like that until it finally kind of comes to a head where he's like, look, I know who you are. I know about your web show. And they've already at this point shared a lot of weird and intimate moments. Like I want to leave some of that for you guys to still see because that one scene, I will just say there's like a hot tub scene and it is fucking weird.
Yeah. There's plenty of jump scares.
So now we're getting to the point
like where Mark Duplass is jumping out at her, like in the first one.
Yeah. Only unlike Aaron, she's not like getting scared
because
she's just like, okay,
because she also jump scares him. Which is weird. Yep. And she scares the shit out of him because he's not used to somebody challenging him, like you said, or not used to somebody scaring him.
Yeah. But so, he tells her, I know who you are. So that's kind of a twist on the first film, right? In the first one, he is not who he says he is. In this film, he's exactly who he's telling her he is, but she's not who she tells him she is. And then now like we're to that same point in the movie where he's like, I know who you are. I know everything. So now he reveals that his newest or his 40th kill is going to be his masterpiece and it's going to be different. Right. So he's basically like, yeah, I want you to kill me. And then she's like, what the fuck?
And he's excited about it. He's like, I thought a lot about this, and I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with it. And he's super excited about her killing him. But to be draw similarities between the two again, where in the first one during tubby time, he pretends to kill himself in the tub. He also pretends to kill himself in this one as well. Remember, because he goes to hang himself and she starts freaking the fuck out. He jumps off of like a second story in his cabin, a different one. And, he's hanging himself and she goes over there and she's trying to prevent him from killing himself and she's freaking out. And eventually the banister that he's hanging from breaks. But at this point, she's really pissed, right? So she's mad that like he was like, what the fuck? Like you were actually going to kill yourself. Because I think maybe she thought he was bluffing up to this point about being a weirdo or, being a serial killer and all this, And by this time, he's already introduced her to Peach Fuzz. Like, she's already seen the mask and all of that. And she hasn't been creeped out and she hasn't left. But this is sort of the straw that started the downward spiral here, right? Is when he tries to kill himself. And she's like getting ready to fucking leave. And she's like, don't fucking talk to me, all this stuff. And then he starts telling her that he's sorry. You know, he was wearing a harness underneath, you know, so he wasn't really going to die. It was a joke. And starts kind of bearing his soul to her and all this. And then he takes her out in the woods at night. And he gives her, what does he give her? Do you remember what he gives her? Yeah,
so he gives her the locket necklace from the first film. But then he's like, yeah, you know, you bring out something in me. Like, you challenge me, you inspire me. Here, I want you to have this. And then he's like, I'm sorry, there's a picture of me and another guy in there. You know, I didn't expect this. I didn't really have time to switch it out.
Yeah.
So, but so now it's about to like take a really crazy turn. You know, now very similar to some of where the first one goes to. Like, they're out in the woods. But now it's nighttime. So this is kind of new, right? We don't really get to see much of that in the first film. Like, when they're out in the woods, it's daytime. Like, all the nighttime stuff takes place in his cabin. So now it's weird because we're in this kind of unknown place. So I personally, for me, I got that same feeling that Sarah was probably feeling. You know, like, we're in this unknown place out in the middle of the woods. It's night. I don't know, like, where to go. Like, I don't know where we're kind of lost in the woods, and she's with this dude that's like proven that he's, whether she believes he's a serial killer yet or not, he's fucking weird.
Well,
right?
You never know what he's going to do.
Now he's just giving her. Right. Well, even as the viewer, you don't know what he's going to do, because it's like, he promised her he wasn't going to kill her. But then, you know, there's that scene where they're playing pool, and that's where he mentions it again. You know, I told you I wouldn't kill you. And she's like, well, you said you wouldn't kill me for the next 24 hours. And he's like, look, I try to give all my victims a warning, you know, like little things like putting in the ad, you know, you must like Interview with, or that I like Interview with the Vampire kind of. And that's kind of hinting, you know, in Interview with the Vampire, you know, he's it's Tom Cruise, you know, Lestat, he's being interviewed and, you know, he's a vampire, he's a killer, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of the same scenario. It's like, I told you, like, I warned you.
Right.
Even though I didn't straight up, I gave you some like trivial thing, or like in the first one with the axe. So
when he takes you out in the woods, though, it's like, are you going to see his dick again? Are you going to like get jump scared?
At this point, you don't know.
What's going to happen? Is he going to try and kill himself again? It's like, what the hell, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, we don't want to give away the ending of this one either. But so basically at this point, like, it kind of mirrors the first one. You know, there's a grave, and she's like, wait, when the fuck did you dig that? You know, he's basically like, well, you know, earlier I didn't know who it was going to be for, you know, but I've got it all figured out now. And this is when he reveals to her that he took her knife, right?
Right.
Because she's like, oh shit. Like, and then he's like, yeah, you know, no, don't worry. It's yours. I took it, you know, whenever I fell from the balcony when you thought I was hanging myself. I thought for sure you would have noticed that. But so then do you want to say what he does next, or do you want to leave that for them to go watch?
I want to leave it. I want to leave it because I really want people to go see these movies.
It's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking.
Yeah. So since we left the first one on a cliffhanger, we're going to leave this one because I think, Justin, going forth in our podcasts, I think with a lot of the newer films, like these aren't super new, ones from 14, ones from, you know, what is this other one from 17?
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll kind of not spoil the endings of a lot of these. Like the older films, like if you haven't seen something from the 70s or 80s, we're going to talk about the ending, right? But these, I think we should start kind of leaving them open to make people go watch them. So you need to see that.
I think it's a good idea.
You need to see this film, guys, because it has similar ending to Creep 1, right? And, you know, like I said, that goes with the ingenious of actually how they wrote it, because at first viewing, you're like, well, that's kind of lazy. They just made the same movie. But like I said, when you actually start watching it analytically and unpacking it, and you're like, okay, well, this is about a serial killer. Serial killers follow this ritualistic MO, you know? So you're like, it makes sense why they're doing so many of the same things, right? And just the simplicity behind the filmmaking from a filmmaker standpoint, Justin, is like, it's just like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? This is ingenious, of the kind of film they were able to make with just a skeleton crew and like just a simple idea, right? But they made it into this larger than life type of film, and they made this character that's fucking, like, I don't know about you, but I like the shit out of Mark Duplass's character. I'm like, this dude is like, he's like likable, especially in the second one, right? The first one, you're like, I don't know, man, that tubby time is kind of weird. The whole like bestiality stuff is really weird. But in the second one, you're like, this dude is like, he's like, this could be like one of your friends, he's like very likable, right? Until like the final act.
It could always be one of your friends.
Yeah. Until the final act, you're like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're like, this dude's not good to be around.
So
yeah, check out Creep 2 because we're not giving you the ending, but I do want to talk about some interesting things with this film, like outside of the story, like, some production stuff.
Tell me about it.
Because, so this one, it was very much like the first one. The script was pretty much just like an outline or a treatment. And there was a lot of improv. So sometimes if, from everything I've read and stuff I've, watched, when some of these the actor or actress would make a certain choice, it would genuinely shock or surprise the other one. So some of the reactions are genuine. They're like, wait a second, but you're rolling. So you can't just be like, wait, what?
That's why it feels, you just gotta go with so good sometimes and feels so bad at other times, because you're like, that's, I don't know. I mean, you're getting those real reactions and real responses, and
Yeah, but the bad stuff isn't like, oh, that's bad. Why'd they put that in the film? It's like awkward.
It's awkward and like gut wrenching and scary, right? Yeah. That's what I mean by bad. It's like scary, And they make that big story up about why he has like bald patches in his beard in the movie. And,
yeah.
Apparently, Mark Duplass just like fucked up trimming his beard. Like before the film, or like, I guess while they were filming. And so they just used it in the movie. That's like how improv they were getting on this. You know what I mean? And like, it's nothing you would have ever even noticed. Like, I would have never noticed the bald patches in his beard, but they somehow just it was probably a joke on set. And so they were like, well, let's just add it into the movie. It's going to make things even weirder.
Or it was genuine, since they were improving a lot, because she points it out. She's like, what happened to your beard? So that could have been just, her, Desiree Akhavan. Just, and then now she's put him on the spot. So he's got to, he's kind of almost like, at first he's like, don't talk about my patchiness.
Yeah. So Creep 1 and Creep 2, I would say they are a perfect double feature. If you have any friends that you love or friends that you hate, make them watch one or both of these movies. Show it to children as young as 11 years old.
Yeah. And also, if I've learned anything from these films, I've learned that from me to you, to express our friendship and my love for you as my best friend, I need to start sending you creepy ass DVDs of me like watching you sleep.
You mean just burn the footage you already have the DVD and just send it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've got some pretty interesting stuff. Some of it I don't want you to know that I have, so we'll just see what you get. Yeah. It'll be like a loot crate. It'll be like a loot crate monthly subscription. Yeah.
Nice.
Just weird ass just shit,
So I would say, Justin,
I just start sending you boxes. It's got like a disc, and then it's got like random things that were supposed to be in your house, and you're like, I'll send you your toothbrush.
Oh, there's my car keys.
Yeah, I've been looking for those.
Yeah. But now I can finally go to work.
Yeah.
So I would say out of, if we were judging on a scale of 1 to 10, which we don't normally rate movies, but I guess I would say I would probably give these an 8, probably pretty evenly, both films. I like them both a whole lot. And when it comes to found footage, there's some of the best ones out there, in my opinion. I do like the second one better. just because I think it is Mark Duplass is a little bit, he's weird in it. I think he's a little bit weirder in the first one because he looks a little more strange. He looks a little more friendly in the second one with his like little like ponytail and his beard. He just looks more friendly, right? And I think the first one makes me feel. Yeah,
but he also low key looks like someone that would start like a Manson family style.
That's another
cult,
thing.
You know?
That's another thing. He is definitely like a David Koresh or like a. Like definitely a cult leader, right? That is the thing about it is, you know, how those guys are overly, you know, exuberant. They're overly friendly. And then that's how they, you know, gain people's trusts. It's a very perversive way of.
He's very personable.
Right. Yeah. It's a very perversive way of like playing on somebody's human psyche, right? Is like, I'm going to be extremely likable, gain your trust. And then I'm going to, you know, slowly kind of show you that I'm digging graves and, you know, other shit. Yeah, right. Whatever. Bring it on. Let's.
Yeah. Yep. So that being said, go check out Creep 2. Again, shout out to Jasmine, Dirty Little Horror on Instagram. Thanks for the suggestion. It is that time, ladies and gentlemen, for trivia of terror. So if you keep up with this podcast and you've been keeping score, you know that I finally missed a question last week. So I am no longer undefeated, but I am still the reigning champion.
We'll see.
So we'll see tonight. I get a feeling like, because he's already told me, even though I missed one already, like he's going to be unrelenting in his pursuit to fuck me over on some questions.
Nah, so one of these is pretty easy. One of them would be easy if you would take my show recommendations. So guys, Justin has 30 seconds to answer each question. I have 2 questions for him. He has 2 for me. He's going to ask me one and then, or I'm going to ask him one and then he's going to ask me one and we're going to do it in that sort of format. So Justin, are you ready for your first question?
I am.
So first question, this is the easy one. What 1980s child star managed to kill Jason Voorhees by harnessing the power of makeup in Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter, 1984?
Corey Feldman.
Easy. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Die.
Yep. Die. That's the easy one.
All right. You ready for your first one?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see. Which one do I want to ask you first? Okay. What horror film was the first ever to be nominated for Best Picture?
Psycho.
Final answer? If you don't say final answer, I'll let you. You can. Phone
a friend.
Phone a friend. Okay, Andrew, what's your question? Oh, I see. What horror film was the first ever to be nominated for Best Picture? Let's see. What kind of hint can I give you? This film resulted in permanent ailments from injuries that one of the actresses received on set.
What? That is a terrible. That I wish I would have called a different friend.
This film is famous for this.
I wish I would have called a different friend.
One of the actresses in this film got severely injured in one of the most famous scenes of this film. It was also an extremely controversial film for its time, and it was supposedly so intense that people were throwing up in the theaters. That's all I'm giving you.
The Exorcist?
Yes, The Exorcist.
The Exorcist. I guess I got that.
That was the first.
You only had to lead me down a path of like constant clues, but like that one Best Picture? I guess I should have known that.
No, it was
nominated
for Best Picture.
I'm actually wearing a Reagan shirt right now, so you figured that would have been easy, but
yeah, well, I didn't want to point out your shirt, but
yeah.
Okay, well, you got it. I cut you off from your hints.
Nominated. Like, I thought maybe it was. I thought I heard one Best Picture. That's why I was like, Psycho?
No, this was the first. No, it did, because Psycho, it didn't need. So this was way after Psycho. I mean, obviously, like film wise, but so this was the first horror film ever to be nominated for Best Picture.
I understand now. I thought it won Best Picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Yep. So I just misheard you. So Justin, do you know the show that I've been telling you to watch lately?
Yeah, but I haven't watched it.
Well,
So
you should have. It would have
me.
made this next question a whole lot easier on you because this is a question dealing with the movie American Werewolf in London. Are you ready? So,
Okay, let's go.
Justin, what is the name of special effects makeup artist Rick Baker's dog that gave him the ideas for the werewolf makeup while he was making the prosthetics and the werewolf in American Werewolf in London?
I have seen interviews where he's mentioned this, and now I'm not even like, okay, I'm going to phone a friend right off the bat. Yo, Andrew, I got this question.
I got you, man. So if you watch the show Holliston, they actually ask this exact question. So you would know this. On my recommendation.
That's your hint?
No,
That's your hint?
My hint is it is a dog name that is not necessarily... I don't even know how to hint at this. I don't. It starts with a B. That's all I could tell you without giving it away.
Baxter?
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer. I know it's wrong.
Are you sure?
but-
Take one more guess. Baxter is not correct. You've got 10 seconds.
Blah, blah, blah. Brody. I don't know.
No. See, this is a question, guys, that is advanced. And see, the only reason this question I'm asking it, he got it wrong. And I don't expect him to get this right. The only reason I am asking him this question, I knew the answer because I've read up on trivia on this particular movie. But I've been trying to get Justin to watch the show Holliston. And
This is his way of saying,
fuck you for not watching.
You should have listened to me. You should have
The
listened to
dog's
me.
name is Bosco. Like Roscoe, but with a B. And
I've heard Rick Baker say that.
Yeah.
I just, that's not a name that I'm just like, oh shit, I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
So, all right, Justin, second question. Let's roll.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
The following quote is from which 90s teen scream flick? Oh, you got a letter? I got ran over. Helen gets her hair chopped off, and Julie gets a body in her trunk, and you get a letter?
I know
That's
what you did
balanced.
last summer.
There you go.
So let me tell you guys about I know what
Pretty
you did
sure I
last summer.
butchered that quote because I was pulling that mostly from memory when I typed it out. But
Yeah, it's I know what you're talking about, and so does the listeners because let me tell you about I know what you still does. I snuck into that movie as a kid. I used to sneak into movies at the movie theater. I would buy a ticket for something that was PG-13, sneak into the R-rated movies. I mean, those were something that I really did a lot as a kid. Really enjoy those memories. I did it with...
I've done that a couple times, but not a hell of a lot.
Yeah. I also snuck into Titanic. So my older sister, this is a quick story. My older sister bought tickets to go see Man in the Iron Mask when that came out. At the same time, Titanic was playing. So me and my friend, we knew that Titanic showed Kate Winslet's boobs in it. So being young preteen kids, we're like, oh, this is great, right? And so we bought tickets to go see, I can't remember, it's like an animated movie or something, right? Something that was like G. And we snuck into Titanic just for that scene. And I remember us just sitting there. And like at that time, Titanic was like larger than life. And it was just a great movie at the time, right? Like we were like, holy shit. Like all the whole Titanic sinking scenes were just amazing. The dude flying down and hitting the propeller. I remember audibly laughing out loud when that happened. And like, I remember getting some death stares in the theater because that dude was like, everybody was like, oh my God. It was like when you saw The Passion of the Christ. And everybody in the theater is crying, and I was like looking around because I went.
You were John Travolta in the theater. You're like,
yeah, no, I got drugged to that, right? So when I was like, I can't remember when that came out, when I was like 14, 15, something like that. The girl I was dating at the time was a big Christian. Her parents were big Christians, so they took me. And I, of course, was like, this is fucking weird. Like, this is weird. Everybody was crying. People, you know, like in church when they raise their hand up in the air and stuff like that. I was like, what kind of cult did I just walk into, you know? But yeah, so Titanic was the same way. People were like, they were looking at it like it was like a historic video. Like, this is really what happened. The dude swinging from the freaking thing and
it's a document. It's like a real-time documentary.
Yeah. I'm like, are you people insane? Like, Anyways, that's all I've got.
I just think it's funny that you like bought a ticket to see, probably it was like Hercules or something, and you snuck in to see Titanic.
I'm telling you, it was
because I'm looking up 1997 like cartoons. You had like Hercules and The Land Before Time, Mystery Island, or it's probably The Brave Little Toaster.
So 1997, guys. I was born in '86. So if that tells you I was 11 years old, I was sneaking into movies at that time. You know, so what we would do is, I mean, back then it was easy. You just buy a ticket for something. It was never like going in the back door. You just buy a ticket and then you just go see a different movie. You just wait till the ushers leave, because a lot of times they just collect the tickets at the right there at the entry where you would branch off to go to all the different theaters. You just wait till they go away, which they normally do after the movies start playing their previews, and then you just go see what you want to see. That's all I got.
Yep. So that's going to be it for us. I missed a question again tonight, and Andrew got both. So thanks for checking this out. Don't forget to go watch Creep and Creep 2. And also don't forget everblackcoffee.com.
40%
Dead
off.
and Gone 20. Dead and Gone 20, 40% off. Some awesome coffee. And that's all we got. We will catch you in the next one.
See ya.